Great. Okay, let me
Okay,
go
so
back.
this is Amy Lujan, and this is June 3rd, 2021, Juneau Gastineau Rotary Club, and we're pleased to have with us Corinne Conlon, who's going to talk about Big Brothers Big Sisters here in Juneau. So take it away, Corinne.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about Big Brothers Big Sisters of Alaska and what it looks like in Juneau. And I'm hoping this video works because technical kind of stuff always gets tricky. Okay, so I just like to start out with that. I find it really inspiring, but I also want to begin with kind of the story of Big Brothers Big Sisters. So in Juneau, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Southeast Alaska began when Kevin Ritchie, thank you, Kevin. I saw you on the Zoom this morning. Kevin Ritchie and Margaret Pugh saw the need for the program in our community. So in 2007, the programs in Juneau, Fairbanks, and Anchorage united to form Big Brothers Big Sisters of Alaska. And for me, I moved here in 1995, and in 1996, I became involved with the program as a big sister, and then I was on the board member. And so for me, Big Brothers Big Sisters has always been a part of our community and a really important part of it. So our mission is to create and support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Alaska connects youth experiencing adversity with caring adult mentors. Youth in our program are more confident, safe, and engaged at school. Together, we empower children to achieve their full potential. In our vision and values, so our vision is that all youth achieve their full potential. Our values are community, resiliency, connection, quality outcomes. So there's really core programs. And so one of them is the community-based program. So adult mentors are matched with youth ages 6 to 16 with a commitment to meet 2 to 4 times a month for at least 1 year. So even though the matches go to the youth turns 18, that's kind of the age that we're looking for to match them. And we have an initiative, we have the Alaska Native Mentoring, and this is designed to encourage and recruit Alaska Native bigs and littles to the program. So talking about the youth, youth can be referred to us from parents, guardians, teachers, counselors, and other community members. Youth have to want to be in the program and have parent or guardian permission. And it's one thing that we do when we interview the youth is we ask them if they want to be in the program. It's not just the parent or the guardian who is interested in it. So the youth are interviewed and assessed by Big Brothers Big Sisters staff. Parents are interviewed as well for youth in the community-based program. And then for volunteers for bigs, volunteers are also interviewed and assessed by Big Brothers Big Sisters staff. We do a minimum of 3 reference checks are conducted. So we're very, very concerned with safety. If a volunteer works for a youth serving organization, we also do a reference check for those. We really want to make sure that this person is safe and that we're doing as much as we can to ensure that in the match. Big Brothers Big Sisters has a layered background check system that all volunteers go through. So it's pretty intense. And who do we serve? So in Alaska, we serve 450 youth annually in 10 Alaskan communities. And 72% of those are from households living at or in poverty. So what we do is we really ignite potential in these youth. So the youth say that 100% say they do better in school. 98% say they make better choices. 98% say they feel more accepted by adults. And 91% say they have higher educational expectations. 84% say they feel more accepted by their peers, and 79% say they feel more connected to their families. We're really looking at those that potential of youth, and we're trying to create some stability and role model mentoring relationship for that youth that can help them achieve all of the things that that youth can be. So COVID-19 has really affected youth, and KTOO did a report on how COVID has affected youth. So according to the article, prior to COVID-19, kids were only about a third of the patients at the behavioral health department, and this of course is at Bartlett Regional Hospital. Now children make up the majority of the hospital's behavioral health patients and a quarter of the department's emergency room traffic. And there's the full article underneath it. It's a very good article, and it's not surprising that there's a lot of mental health issues that have come out of you know of just the pandemic and lockdown and being really you know um, at home with a limited amount of people that you interact with. I know my daughter is an introvert, and it's been a hard year for her, and she prefers to not be around a lot of people. I want to talk about Juneau. I started in March with Big Brothers Big Sisters as a community manager, and in that role, I work on outreach. I work to try to create matches and a little bit of fundraising. But when I came, there's been kind of a lapse in having a staff person in Juneau, and I think with as well as COVID-19 has really decreased what's kind of been happening in Juneau. So currently we have 31 matches. And so this compares with a high of 150 matches. So our goal is to significantly increase the number of caring adults matched with youth in Juneau. I would love to see 150 matches again in Juneau. I think that there's a need, and I think that we have a community that can really support those youth. So we need your help. So if you know of someone who would like to do fun activities with youth or a child aged 6 to 16 years old who would benefit from having a mentor, please refer them to our website, BBBSAK. Oh, and that's wrong. It's always when you realize that thing. So it should be Big Brothers Big Sisters, BBBSAK.org, and have them click on Become a Big or Get a Big. And it's a pretty simple process. It kind of gets them into our queue. We do an orientation with them just to kind of make sure that they can commit to a year, that they kind of understand what the program is. And, we give them as much information, allow them to ask questions. And then we set them up on an interview. And since I came on, we've really looked at it as kind of a statewide approach. I have been doing a lot of interviewing for different parts of the state, interviewing volunteers and parents and youth. I would really love to have my focus be on doing that for Juneau volunteers and Juneau youth. So if you have any comments, any questions, you can email me at Corinne Conlon at BBBS. Wow. In there too. So one of the things that we do is, every technology is different, and certainly we're using Canva, and Canva, the screen is so tight, but obviously I have to make it as big and do the presentation first. So I can't believe I did it both. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I know that we had technical difficulties, so I know I want to try to finish up in a couple of minutes. But if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question, Corinne. This is Amy. I think you're on mute again, though, for some reason. I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. You're back. Okay, so I was just wondering, you
Good.
said you want a year commitment, but many of the matches last much longer than a year if that works out for both parties, right?
Right. I mean, so we start with an initial year commitment just because we want to make sure. I mean, to, we find that like for a relationship to kind of really work, I mean, it takes like 6 months to really kind of, I mean, sometimes some matches bond really quickly and kind of, mesh up really well, but some take about 6 months to really get that comfort level. And so we want to have at least a year for them to have that match to really kind of define it. And then usually, we find matches want to continue, and we are very supportive of that. So, one of the things that we do talk about with youth when we start is that all matches close. So we kind of prepare, the youth. I just worked with someone yesterday who's 6 years old, and I was like, all matches close, and that could be because you graduated. So here's a 6-year-old going into first grade. I mean, he might have a match. He might have a big brother until he's, graduated from high school. And that's really exciting. And some, even though the match closes, some matches, continue that friendship, into adulthood. And that's an exciting thing. I mean, I've always felt with my daughter that, the more loving adults that she has in her life, the stronger she is. As I mean, parents are, have a lot on their plates, and there's a different relationship between a parent and an adult who's a friend. And that's what the mentoring component is. It's really building a friendship and having a different dynamic than a parent. And that's what's exciting about it. And one of the things too is that what we try to do is really, really spend a lot of time. I mean, so our interviews are 2 hours long with both a volunteer. I mean, that's how much time we set up with them. And then the parent and the youth interview is also 2 hours. And sometimes, and usually it goes over because we also do some pre-match training with the child, really for safety. The parents also required to do training, so are the adult volunteers. Trauma-informed youth is one of the things that the volunteers take. And so when we do that, we're really looking at really getting to know these people, so that when we match them, we're finding people who, if you like to go out on walks on the wetlands with your dog, and you have a kid who loves animals and loves dogs, then we try to match them so that the activities that people are doing aren't, you know, necessarily like extravagant things like going up to Eagle Crest, skiing, or even going to the pool, but they're doing things that they would do anyways, but now they're doing them with a youth. And doing that in a relaxed, way that, I always find that like the more relaxed you are, I find when my daughter was a teenager, she's 18 now, but like when we would drive in the car, you're sitting side by side, so you're not looking at each other. We would have great conversations. It was one of those things that was kind of surprising, like just doing nothing sometimes is such a great way to have those conversations and to have those questions asked that sometimes aren't so easy. And in an adult mentoring relationship, then that offers an opportunity that's different. And I know my daughter has I call her my daughter's fairy godmother, because sometimes I'll be like, hey, talk to Nara about this. Or, like, oh, hey, Nara is going through this, she's having a really hard day, can you, just give her, a text. And sometimes that can make the big difference in someone's life. And so that's what we do at Big Brothers Big Sisters. Are there any other questions?
So what is the commitment that you ask of volunteers? You know, how often would they expect to get together with their little brother or sister?
So we ask for activities 2 to 4 times a month. So at least 2 times a month. We have a match support specialist who also is involved, and so is kind of checking in with the big, with the little, with the parent, just to kind of make sure that things are going okay. Offering the youth and the parent just an opportunity to, and the big, an opportunity to kind of see if there's any questions, or if there's any um, any problems or any issues. Sometimes like the match support specialist helps with activities like, oh, what about doing this, or this is going on, and what about trying to kind of basically help that match with any difficulties that they might have. And that's a really important thing. And also, as well as is checking in with child safety and making sure that that's everything is safe and secure for that child as much as possible.
And are there group activities that the organization helps facilitate for all the matches?
Yes. So they've been virtual, which has been pretty interesting. But we're going to do in-person match activity. It's kind of the first one since really the lockdown began in March of 2020. So we're going to actually, Allen Marine Tours, we're going to do a whale watch on the 12th. So, and we are doing that with the bigs and littles, and we've opened that up to family members as well. So I don't know. I mean, I hear people at the Prospector and I think, oh, well, it's not the Prospector anymore, but I just think, oh, it's just so exciting to be together and to do things in a group. And I mean, my friend came over for tea last night. I just am like, oh, come inside my house. I mean, I think it's really nice kind of what's happening now. And so I think an in-person activity, I think we're all a little bit excited about the possibility for doing things together again. I think it's been a good year. I mean, to keep each other safe and healthy, but it's also really nice to have that opportunity to be together. I think my favorite part about Juneau, when people ask me what I love about my town, is the sense of community and seeing each other and making these connections and seeing each other in different places and having that opportunity to connect again. So I'm excited that we can make those connections again.
Are there any other questions from online?
Yeah, John Peel has a question here in the room.
So Connie, what are the rules that have been set up nationally by Big Brothers Big Sisters about vaccination and so on of bigs, and how is that going to be going forward?
That's a really good question. So we recently had a meeting a couple of weeks ago to kind of talk about the COVID procedures. So, I mean, they were kind of established, at the beginning of the lockdown, and what the matches would look like virtually. And, it was supposed to be this short meeting. We were supposed to go through a lot of things so we could just have a discussion. And we spent 50 minutes talking about, what they look like in different communities. So you can imagine, COVID looks very different at Juneau compared to what the procedures are in Matsu and different parts of the state. So we've really kind of tailored it individually per community and to the volunteers with how they feel safe. And the question of vaccinations, I can say is it's a really tricky one. And I know that there's lots of discussions, and I know that my supervisor, the program manager, was talking, like she had gone to this national Big Brothers Big Sisters kind of meeting or forum, and that's what they were talking about. And one thing that we do is we don't feel nationally, from my understanding, is that we are made the decision not to ask if volunteers are vaccinated, but what we do try to do is to talk about how the parents and youth feel and how they've handled this kind of situation. So, I mean, if they've had a closed bubble or if they've been more open, like what is their comfort level? And then also the comfort level with the big, and that's part of our consideration. Matches, when they're matched now, they still do 2 weeks of virtual, and then they can do in person. And so in person, we're taking a look at the youth. There are some youth that have been vaccinated, and the bigs have also been vaccinated. And so then that's, in Juneau, then the protocol is different than it is in different parts of the state. So I think it's just, we're all trying to figure it out, and it keeps changing, which is, and hopefully it keeps changing for the better. So John, I'm sorry, that's not a clear-cut answer, because I think every organization is struggling with what this looks like in this, in this phase of everything.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
Evan has a question.
What are the fundraising challenges to keep the program going in Juneau? I mean, clearly you need more volunteers and so on, but you also need staff. What are your fundraising goals, and how's that going, and what are the challenges to the program right now?
Well, so normally we do Bowl for Kids' Sake, as people probably remember. This year we did Connect for Kids' Sake, and so it was basically teams kind of got together and did an activity that you would do if you were, on a match. So some people did hiking, some people did, I took people on a foraging walk, but let me tell you, it was like the middle of March. And if you remember the middle of March, it was like maybe it was the middle of April, but it was still snowy and frozen. And so there wasn't a whole lot of foraging to be done. But so that was a pretty good fundraiser for that. We are looking, there's a position, a match support specialist position in Juneau, and there is a Juneau candidate, and I am crossing my fingers. I would love to have another staff person in Juneau, and that's the hope. And then for fundraising, we just have a new CEO, Jill Lush. She comes to us from Sprouts in Homer. She started last week. She seems great and really on board for really kind of, I'm impressed. She came to staff meeting yesterday, and it was just nice to hear kind of, sometimes like when you don't have your CEO, things are kind of in transition. And we had a great transitional CEO, Rachel Morse from the 4-Acre Group, and she was great and really did some amazing things and listened to staff. So we're kind of excited to see what Jill does. She did a lot of great fund development when she was in Homer with her past job. So we're hoping that continues, and we can see some nice changes to create some staff stability in Big Brothers Big Sisters as well. I know, I totally miss the days. I mean, when I started, when I got involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters, I mean, we had a full staff here. I mean, there was 3 people, and then and so it's, I think that's hard, but I will say that it's been really good to see this kind of statewide support, and I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed, I mean, I've only been working here for 3 months, but is to see this kind of connection. I mean, I've been in positions where you're the one person on the virtual kind of meeting kind of thing, and everyone else is in a conference room. I think there's always that kind of thing that kind of happens where there's always one person virtual and then the other person, the rest of the team is around the conference table. And so it's been kind of nice with Zoom or Google Meet meetings or whatever to kind of have that connection with all parts of the state. And so, yeah, so hopefully that continues.
Any other questions?
All right, I don't see any more. Well, thank you very much for being here. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
Appreciate you getting up here